Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to keep the lesson super duper short and easy because I know you have a ton of questions on last night's homework. So I'm going to do this tiny bit of new material first, and then I'll try to do a full video working out a bunch of the problems from your homework, and that'll take a good bit of time. So here is the new stuff for today. Higher order derivatives. Okay, so up to this point, we've just been talking about the first derivative, but really there's a second derivative, a third derivative, there's even a fifth derivative, a seventh derivative, and the notation for upper level derivatives, the first derivative is f prime. If you have f double prime, then that's a second derivative. This is a third derivative, and after that they get lazy or run out of little slash marks and they use this. So it would be the fourth derivative, the fifth derivative. So this is the seventh derivative. Also, just like we have different ways to denote derivative, this is first derivative. Well, if that's what they use for first derivative, then the second derivative looks like this, oddly enough. And I don't really need you to worry too much about what it means yet. I just need you to recognize that if they ask for this, it just means second derivative. Okay, so from the top, I'd like you to take the time to figure out all of these derivatives. And then after you find a bunch of them, I bet you'll be able to figure out the seventh derivative and even the 70th derivative. So hit pause and go for it. Okay, super fast. The first derivative would be 4x cubed. The derivative of that is 12x squared. The derivative of that is 24x. Okay, well, before I can do the seventh derivative, let's do the fourth derivative. The fourth derivative would be the derivative of 24x, which is 24. The fifth derivative is the derivative of 24, which is a constant. So the derivative of a constant is 0. The sixth derivative is the derivative of 0, which is 0. So the seventh derivative is also 0. So is the 700th derivative. Okay, so just introducing you to higher order derivatives and their notation. Here's another one that's fun. Work out the first 4 derivatives and then see if you can come up with a pattern for finding the 43rd derivative. Okay, so remember, the derivative of sine is cosine, and the derivative of cosine is negative sine. So remember, when you write sine as your answer, change the sign. When you write sine, change the sign. Okay, so from the top, derivative of sine is cosine. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. When you write sine, change the sign. Derivative of negative sine is negative cosine. The derivative of negative cosine is positive sine. When you write sine, change the sign. And notice we now begin a never-ending cycle, and they start to repeat. So after we got to the third derivative, there are basically 4 possible answers, and it starts to repeat. So now let's see if you could figure out a pattern for finding the 43rd derivative or the 400th derivative or any of those. Okay, hit pause and see if you can figure it out. Did you find a pattern to help you figure it out? Well, first let's see if you guessed right. Okay, 43, since the answers, there are 4 different answers that will repeat. I'm going to divide by 4. When I divide 43 by 4, there's a remainder of 3, because 43 divided by 4, think of 40, goes 8 times. Oops, back up. I don't even know what I'm talking about. 10 times. Look crazy right there. So that's 40. So there's a remainder of 3. So basically, there's a remainder of 3. And you visualize the 40 first, because 40 can be divided by 8. So if there's a remainder of 3 is the key. So what derivative does that mean it's the same as? Is it the third one on the list or the third derivative? Well, let me tell you the answer. The answer is negative cosine. So it is the third derivative. But how could we have checked your theory? Okay, let's go with that dividing by 4 thing. The fourth derivative we already know was sine x, and that's because there's 0 remainder when we divide by 4. Okay, the next derivative of sine would be cosine, and that's because 5 divided by 4 has a remainder of 1, same as this one. The sixth derivative, well, we know it's the derivative of cosine, which is negative sine, but using the divide by 4 thing, when I divide by 4, there's 2 left over, so it's the same as the second derivative. So let's say we want the 34th derivative, okay? 34 divide by 4, think of 32, okay? If we divide by 4, there's a remainder of 2. So if there's a remainder of 2, it's going to be the same as the second derivative. It'll also be negative sine. Now, you don't really have to know that. I really was just introducing you to the repeated higher order derivatives. So your assignment today isn't going to really look like that. It'll ask you to find second derivative, third derivative, fourth derivative, stuff like that. But you don't have to look for patterns like I just did. So here's the assignment for today. It's the high numbered ones. These guys are finding higher order derivatives, so they're real quick. And these other ones are just like they were yesterday. So you really got to make sure you answer all your questions on yesterday's work first before you get too involved in just doing it again when you don't know what you're doing. So what I'm going to do now is work through a video going over the most common problems with yesterday's homework. Good luck, guys.